In this video, I'm going to show you how to paint a Sister of Battle from the Order of the Sacred Rose. Here we go with this Order of Sacred Heart Battle Sister. So in terms of the order, we're going to paint everything. We're going to do the cloth first. So this bit here is black and red, the cloth, and then we're going to do the metallics, then we're going to do the armour last. So all I've done to start is I've given it a spray of grey cere all over, and then I've given it a spray of Corax white from about 45 degrees. And this is really the secret to getting a good white armour where most of the work's already done for you. So I'm just going to start off with some Abaddon black. I'm going to use the Abaddon black all over the outside of the habit. So we've got this part here around the back, we've got the sleeves as well, and we've also got the casing of the bolt gun. So work your way around nice and thin with the paint. You can see there it's not covering in one coat, that's fine, two are better. I especially find with Abaddon black because it's just nice and thin. So work your way around everything. I'll go and finish the rest of the black off cam, give it another coat, and then we'll come back and we'll base coat the red underneath. Once that black is dry, you're going to move on to some Mephiston red for the inside of the robes. Well, I should have said this right at the start of the video, but you really take your time and be really careful around the white armour, because the zenithal shade that we've given it is going to be the basis. So if we get paint all over it, it's going to make it difficult to kind of get that nice smooth transition. So just take some Mephiston red and work it around the inside of the cloaks. So we've got this big section here, and what I'll do, I'll probably just switch to a finer tip brush for doing up inside there and here, especially as we get close to the armour, like I said, because the last thing we want to do is get red or black paint all over the nice zenithal prime that we've got on it. So take your time. You may need to put 2 thin coats on. In most places this will cover really well. If you need to paint over any black, then there'll be a little bit of extra paint that you need to put on there, but just let it dry and then do a second coat. So what I'll do, I'll put the link to the brushes I use in the description as well. I mean, I use Winsor and Newton Series 7. For me, they're the best brushes that I've used. I've tried other brands, but what I find is that I've got quite hard water where I live, and certain brands don't cope very well with that. So I'll put a link in the description to the Winsor and Newtons I use, and then you can buy them if you want, and not buy them if you don't want. So I'm just going to work around. Don't forget inside the sleeves, get all that done, and we'll come back and have a look at the leather next. So the colour I'm going to use for the base of the leather is Rhinox Hide. Now you can see there I've already started basing. The video didn't record on the first coat, so I'm just going to show you the second coat going on now. Take your time. As you see, my paint's nice and thin, so it avoids any blotchiness, any ugly lumps, brush strokes in the paint. So take your time around the backpack as well, for the same reason that we don't want to get any of this on the white. Okay, if we get it on a bit, we're going to paint over, but we want to try and avoid getting it on the white as far as we can. So work your way around, let that dry, and then when we come back, we'll be on the metallics. The first metallic we'll use is Retributor Armour, which is gold. Now there's not a lot of gold on the model. We've just got this icon here, which I want to get painted. Just be careful not to go over any of the black that you've already done. I'll get the chain done as well. Again, take your time on this. There's very little gold, so just work it into the model. And we've got this fleur-de-lis icon on the, I guess it's the top of the chest. We just want to give that a colour, being careful not to go over the white. So let that gold dry. If you need to go back in like that, I need to put a little black paint in there, I'll go in, I'll touch it up, and we'll come back, we'll do the silver metallics next. I've gone in and tidied up that gold a little bit with some black, so we'll base the metal next, or the silver metal. So this is iron hand steel. You can use lead belcher if that's all you've got, or if you've got gunmetal from Army Painter, absolutely fine. So work this around the model, take your time, be careful going over bits you've already painted, and be especially careful, as usual, around the bits of the model that are going to be white, so the armour, the gloves. So we've got the gun, we've also got the shoulder symbol here, so we want to base that, again being really careful that we don't overspill. We've got some pipe work coming through here, so we'll get that done. We've got the fleur-de-lis here, we've got the fleur-de-lis, oh we've got a fleur-de-lis, we've got the skull on the backpack, we've got the handle of the bolt pistol, and we've got a nice little clip on there, we've got the grenade, and then we've got the sides of the helmet there, and these kind of studded parts on the backpack. So I'm going to go away and paint the rest of those off cam, and then we'll come back. We'll do the scrolls next, and I think we're at the point where we can start shading and highlighting and getting this model to really pop. Working around getting all that silver metallic did actually take a little bit of time, but it is worth it because it's going to make the white armour so much easier. And if you're painting a white armoured army, you're already committed to the long run, so it's worth it. So the last bit of base coating we're going to do, just take some Rakarth flesh, and we're just going to use this to detail up the scroll work. So just cover the whole of all the scroll work on your model with Rakarth flesh. And one other thing I've found is that I'm switching brush sizes quite a bit, and that's just to make it easy to get in there with the tip. I mean, normally you can get your way around a model with a size 1 Winsor and Newton with a good tip, but on this one I'm just changing up a little bit just to make sure that I preserve that white and grey undercoat. So I've got that one there, got this one around the back. Work your way around, get all your parchment and scroll work base coated in Rakarth flesh. We'll come back and we'll start the fun part and really giving some depth and character to this model. Okay, so the first bit of shading we're going to do is with Agrax Earthshade, and I'm going to do this on the gold. You can see straight away it starts to pick up the detail, which is exactly what you want. Make sure you haven't got too much on your brush though, because we don't want to flood the areas. And then we're going to do the purity seals as well with Agrax Earthshade. And just, you see I'm just working it over to give a little bit of a shade. I don't want to give a huge amount of shade. And be careful when you're around other parts of the model as well, so that you don't spill brown all over them, because it'll just make the model look a little dirty. As for this little bit of gold here, we just want to work it around, not leaving too much outstanding. Just a little bit of shade and shadow on it, and we've got this little bit here to do, so I'll go back and do that off cam. The other thing I want to do as well with the Agrax Earthshades, I just kind of want to work some of it into the cloak where we've got these big flowing bits, because we'd get a little bit of a natural shadow in there. So you saw the way I worked that, I just kind of pulled it in, and I'm just letting it kind of dry there, because if I move the model that way, it'll start to move along with it. So just keep it moving as it starts to dry. But once it does start to take, don't touch it, because it will start to pull off, and then you'll have a very horrendous tide watermark there. So I'm just going to let that dry, and then I'll come back and we'll do the null oil shading for all the silver metallics next. Alright, once that Agrax Earthshade is dry, we're going to take some null oil and we're going to wash up the silver. So just work it over, take your time, be careful. So anything you've painted silver, we just want to cover up. Be careful around armour panels, around the gloves, because we don't want to get too much of a stain. And the other place to be really careful is where you've got something like the fleur-de-lis on the knee here. I've just managed to mix some null oil into some Mephiston red, so that's not great. So just paint on the fleur-de-lis, and what you'll find is that the null oil will then start to find the edge and run into it. Don't put too much on your brush. That's the key here, and just work it around gently, take your time. Okay, so I'm going to finish off doing the rest of the washing with the Nuln Oil, and then you can see what happens when you put too much on. You get a bit of a run, that's fine. And when we come back, we'll have a look at starting the process of highlighting. So all the metal, get the Nuln Oil over it, and then we'll go from there. Slight change of plan. I was going to start highlighting everything next, but actually what I think I'll do is I think we'll get part of the white armour done. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to take Apothecary White contrast paint, and I'm going to paint this all over the white armour. So take your time and work your way around. You don't want to throw it on. You do want to cover all of the white armour though. And the reason I think it's probably better to do this now is because if we do it later on, then we run the risk of actually getting it over some of the kind of bits we've already done, and then you just got to go back in and repair and cover it back up that area. And that's the whole point of doing things the order we have, is to kind of minimise the amount that we have to do. So as this contrast paint dries, it'll start to move and pull into the kind of the recesses of the model. Don't forget we've got to do the gloves as well. So work your way around, cover all the white armour with the Apothecary White contrast paint, and then we'll come back and we'll start highlighting for real this time, I absolutely promise. Alright? With that Apothecary White, it's starting to kind of define the armour plates a bit, which is great. If you think, oh, do you know what, I want a little bit more shade in, then just put a little bit more Apothecary White in after it's dry. And what that will do is just kind of blend and glaze in quite nicely. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but I've done that a little bit on the backpack. So let's get to highlighting then. So I'll highlight the black first. And the colour we want for this is Dark Reaper. And what we're going to do, we just want to move it along the sharpest edges of the cloth. Now, this is a really effective way of highlighting black. You can use the edge of the brush there, look, if there's an edge in the material. But just take your time and work your way around. We're not doing the weapon in this, we'll do that in a different kind of highlight colour, because it's kind of a hard black, whereas this is more of a soft material black. So work your way around, and we've got the bit on the front as well. Don't forget the sleeves. And we'll come back and we'll just give it another little of a sharp highlight just to pick everything out. Once that first highlight of Dark Reaper is done, so I'm going to take a little bit of Thunderhawk blue. Now the trick with this is to paint it inside the Dark Reaper. So the Dark Reaper is kind of a thick highlight, and the Thunderhawk blue is just a skinnier highlight in between, and this will just give you that nice sharp look to the robes. So we're doing exactly the same thing in exactly the same areas, just working our way around the model, and we're popping that Thunderhawk blue in, nice thin line inside the Dark Reaper. So work your way around, and then when we come back we'll have a look at highlighting the leather. The leather highlight next, and this is really straightforward. So just take some Doombull brown, and all you want to do is follow the kind of edge of the model. You're just following along the design basically in terms of the shape. And don't worry, this first Doombull brown highlight can be quite a thick highlight. That's okay, because we're going to put another little one on behind it. So that's the first highlight. Just going to clean my brush, and then the second highlight is just going to be scrag brown, and you don't want too much of this. This is just the kind of extreme highlight, just to kind of give some interest on the leather. Take your time, and that's the leather highlight done. So next up we'll just put a little bit of red highlights on some of the cloak, and then we'll have a look at the metallic highlights. The first red highlight is going to be Evil Sun Scarlet. So The red is quite close to the white in some places, so you really want to take your time and just maybe just here I'm just edging the kind of the bit that's sticking out, which is just a lot easier to control there. We've also kind of got the cloak here, so I spilt some apothecary white on it, but that's fine because I can just work over it with some of the Evil Sun Scarlet. And again, we've got this edge in here. Just take our time. And I'm just going to draw a highlight in there. Just kind of a little highlight there as well. As it dries, it'll kind of blend back in a little bit. I just want to highlight along that red edge in there like that. And then similarly, we've got the other side there. So I'll finish that off cam and then we'll come back and pop in the next extreme red highlight. Just quickly before we go in and highlight the metallics, I'm just going to take some more Rakarth flesh and just actually going to use this to kind of highlight the bits of the scroll work which just kind of jump out just on there, just to give a little bit of sense of colour. I'm using Rakarth flesh that I've had on my palette, so it's not the best. If you need to put some fresh down, then I'd recommend putting the fresh down, but it just gives us that little bit extra. We can put some scroll work on that later on. I'll show you how to do that. So just going to let that dry. We'll come back and we'll drop the model. Be very careful doing that, and then we'll highlight metallics next. And in all the excitement, I forgot to highlight the last bit of red. So we're just going to use some Wild Rider red for this. It's kind of like an orangey red. We don't want to use too much of this. We just want to use it on the kind of those sharpest edges where the red cloth really kind of jumps out. So use this quite sparingly and the effect will be greater. I'm going to pop a little bit on the corner there. There we are. Okay, so red's done, and we'll definitely do the metallic highlights next. So the colour that we're going to use for highlighting the metallics is chrome from Vallejo Model Air. Really nice shiny silver. So we're just going to work our way around the model using the shape of the model to guide us. Take your time with this because it can be quite time consuming. I'm going to just pop a little bit on the icon there where it might catch the light to be absolutely, be the absolute shiniest. Where we've got this part here, we just want to draw basically lines of chrome, leaving the shadow in place. So just take your time, nice point on your brush, and work your way around. For the kind of the Inquisition symbol, we can just make that nice and shiny. And the wings, we've got the fleur-de-lis here. So there we are. So just work your way around, use the design and the pipe work where you can to kind of to make this as easy for you as possible. And then when we come back, we'll do a little bit of scroll work. We'll highlight the white, and then apart from a few bits and pieces like the Purity Seal, the eyes, this Sacred Heart Sister is done. We'll quickly highlight the casing on the weapon. So just a bit of Mechanicus standard grey for this, and you really don't want too much on your brush because all we're going to do is going to move it along the edges there, using the shape of the model just to kind of inform us where the highlights go in. It's nice and simple. Where you need to, you can just use the tip of your brush, the point of your brush, and just work it down over the casing. If you find that it's looking a bit untidy, then all you need to do is just go back in with some black just to cover it up. It's nice and straightforward. So just work around the weapon, get that highlighting done on the casing, and we'll come back for the next stage. We'll do some of that scroll work next, and this is quite straightforward. That Rhinox hide that we used earlier, just water it down quite a bit, and then just use the point of your brush just to dab at it, and you're looking to draw some squiggly lines. This is a really basic way of doing the text on the scroll work. If it's not flowing off your brush, just add a little more water, just to water it down that little bit more. Again, make sure you haven't got too much on your brush. So just do this, work it round on all the scroll work, and then when we come back, I think we'll highlight the white. So to highlight the armour, I'm just going to take some white scar. Now this is the reason we used the apothecary white and then the Corax white and the kind of gracier undercoat. It gives us constant gradient through the model. So just with that white scar, you can see there, it makes the model, the edges in particular, really kind of jump out in terms of the starkness, and it's really a really nice kind of effect that we're getting with that. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to work our way around the model. We're going to highlight all the edges of the armour where the light is going to kind of bounce off the sharpest edges, and then that'll be the armour done. We've got the eyes of the helmet to do, and there's some just that little bit of purity seal. One thing I would say to do whilst you've got the skull white on the go is just when it comes to the eyes of the helmet, just dot that skull white in there, because that's going to help us when we do the red eyes in a mo. So work your way around the rest of the model, pick out all those hedges, not in a garden, all the edges with white scar, and we'll come back and do the last few details, and this Sister of the Sacred Rose is complete. So with all those white highlights done, the models really come together quite nicely. So let's finish it off. So the first thing we're going to do is use a little bit of Dark Angels green contrast paint, and this is just for the wax here on the purity seal. So just take your time, especially when it comes to the working around the edges, to make sure you don't get it on the armour. So there we are, nice and easy. So let that dry, and then we'll come back, we'll do the eyes, that little screen on the backpack to show it's turned on, Ghostbusters style, and then this model's done. We use Blood Angels red contrast paint now for the eyes, so just work it in to the eye, and the kind of contrast paint will take over the capillary action. And this is why we use the white scar dot in the eye as well, because it'll just help with when the paint dries and kind of pulls itself round, just help with that drying action. So there's the eyes done, nice little glow. Then we just got this little screen on the back which we want to paint, again being careful on the edges. We want to move the paint to that bottom right hand corner. So there we are, model complete. So go away, base this in the style of the rest of your army, and I'll come back, we'll see it on the turntable, and we'll wrap things up. There we have it. This Sister of Battle from the Order of the Sacred Rose is complete, and I think a whole army of these models would look absolutely fantastic on the tabletop. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please leave a like and a comment down below. If you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. I'll put a list of all my preferred equipment that I've used in this video as well. You can click those links if you like. If you don't, that's fine as well. So I really hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.